Hello there. How are you?
Hello.
It's very nice to have you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy day
Yeah,
and
no
after your
worries.
second COVID vaccine day,
Yes.
busy day, to come and talk to us. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Hooray.
Yeah.
My students got to see some gorgeous artwork from you
Oh,
on
thank you.
Wednesday's class,
Oh,
and they were
cool.
very, very
Yeah.
pleased. They all wanted to go home with this corgi.
Oh.
Now my classroom assistant, he's a
Yeah.
very good boy. And they had submitted a whole bunch of really amazing questions to ask you about what you do for your job. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so the first thing that most people ask,
Mhm.
every art guest that we have, is what inspired you to start doing art?
So I so the funny thing is nobody in my family really draws. My sister draws, and I have a funny story where my brother drew a house, and he drew a house so much better than me. And he kept saying, "Well, I draw the best house." So I drew he did the one where it looks like it has like an actual house, just simple shapes. And I just did the triangle and square. And I was like, "Oh, I want to be better than you." And that's like the first memory of I have drawing. But then since then, I draw like a lot of animals. I'm like, "Oh, it's actually fun." And I started drawing dogs because I like dogs the most. And so in terms of like roots on why I started, I like the creativity a lot. I kind of grew up shy, and so I kind of looked to drawing in my free time, especially during school too, which my teachers hated.
Well, I'm for team doodle in class because I teach art class.
Yeah,
It's how we get our ideas out.
awesome.
Also, I still draw houses like that. They are just a square with a triangle on it.
The funny thing is now that I draw simple shapes, and now I actually go back to just like the triangle and the
It,
square.
it's come full circle now.
Yeah.
That's great. So you do gorgeous drawings. We saw a lot
Thank
of
you.
different versions of drawings that you've done, from um more complicated stuff to stuff that's really wonderful, like simple shapes and things like that. But what got you into making your drawings into something that's 3D, like a plushie?
So that it's funny because I was posted my art online for like years since I was a teenager, and the artist is turning their drawings into plush. When I started, it was not exactly new, but it was kind of way harder to get into it. And
Mhm.
I was like, well, I always kind of wanted to I want more corgi plushies because I have a corgi like mine. So that one's based off of my corgi, actually, like the markings on the back and everything. And I'm like, and I drew a lot of corgis at the time. And I'm like, I kind of want corgi plushies. And I was super nervous. Like I did like a campaign where people would like pitch in money to order one, and actually did well.
That's how I got mine.
Yeah, thank you. And then from there, I kind of was obsessed. So I just try to make one every year. And I enjoy like plush design a lot. And another thing too is a lot of people make plush of just very, very simple, but it's like a dog that maybe looks more like a cat. Um,
Yeah.
I don't never see the ones where like the long faces and big ears, or less kind of
Hmm.
like chibi, which is a kind of an anime term, you
Yeah.
know. And so I was kind of one of the first ones with that kind of just regular look, if that makes sense, rather than just everybody made like the food animals or like hybrids or
Mhm.
super, 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 super simple. And I'm like, well, I just want a dog. So that's why I started with.
Yeah, you're right. I don't really have any memory of like a lot of dog toys that have the sort of, more shapes of dogs. I mean, I think maybe I wonder if it's just harder to come up with a sort of, I guess I want to say sculpt, but
Yeah, it's
it's
way,
just easier to give them a kind of
yeah, like
shape.
for example, like a lot of them would kind of be
We get a drawing? Oh boy.
like it like this, for example. This is kind of a crummy drawing, but like if I were, let's say this is a Shiva or something, but something like this is much easier to make into like a plush.
It is very cute still, but it definitely
And
doesn't have the snoot.
yeah, so it's like the tiny, tiny, tiny little snoot, and it's cheaper to produce and stuff that way for factory. And I'm like, it was more expensive, but worth it because this is the stuff I like buying. And then I think once I started, people's like, oh, I can do that. So more people started doing it. And then so I was like, I'm gonna buy your plush too.
I think
Yeah.
our plush Kickstarters were the same year because this is 2016 on it.
It really has a year on it. Oh wow.
This one does, yeah.
Yeah.
This one does. Yeah. 2016.
Wow.
Yeah. Staring at a corgi butt.
Thank
So these are great. Now,
you.
scooting a little bit, just because we were kind of talking about the plush, or we're gonna kind of go out of order of the
Yeah.
questions I had.
Yeah, no worries.
So your drawings are incredibly recognizable. They have a great style to them.
Well, thank you.
Recognize your work from a mile away, which
Yeah.
is a really unique thing,
No,
and
thank you.
great thing that artists can have to be recognized. Because sometimes, as you know, on the internet, someone will chomp your name off of it. They'll say,
Yep.
I made this.
Yeah.
Clearly didn't. So having something that's recognizable is terrific and wonderful. How do you go about making a very stylized 2D drawing into a still translated stylized 3D plush?
So usually what you do is you kind of like, I normally draw like really, really simple shapes. And then so what I would do is like, okay, so I have to simplify it slightly. I have to make it a little softer looking. And then do a turnaround, which is basically drawing from the side and the front and the back. And then sometimes little details, like I like paws like this. I want
Paws are great.
they turn out really well. And like technically speaking, I could have had little paw pads underneath it because there's enough room on it.
Yeah, I guess there is.
Yeah, but so and then once you do the turnaround, and especially if you do one side, it's called 3/4 view, which if you like that right there. So
Yeah.
you kind of see both eyes, the muzzle is not straightforward. And then it kind of looks more 3D that way. And then that's from you when you're doing a turnaround, then you problem solve like, okay, well, the ears don't look good in plush. I have to modify it. Like normally the ears in my drawings are more fat, but here they're more flat. And it still looks like,
You'd like to think wiggle.
Yes. And they have like and even more problem solving is like the ears the factory did like 7 times because we had to find the perfect height. It's because they would just fall over or fall back. And they're so frustrated. I'm like, no, please. And then now it looks great because even if you put it forward in packaging, it springs back up.
So
yeah, so I would ship them. Yes,
there we go.
I would ship them like that, and so they'll come, and they never flop, which I love.
Yeah, I think they have like a piece of plastic or a very sturdy foam on the inside.
Yeah, so it's called interfacing. So it's kind of like really, really hard fabric. So
I don't know why he's agreeing with you. But yeah, that's great. So it clearly took a long time to go through the process of from sketch to finalized okayed plushie to what I have it in my hands.
Yes, it took lots of the fact we had because when it turned to a plush, then you're like, oh, I have to, for example, if you look here, I made the eyes way closer together in the artwork, but that's not possible. So we had to like make them further apart so the fabric doesn't like eat it. It doesn't disappear in the seam. So there's enough room.
There's a seam for the white stripe and the orange, and it can really easily go.
Yes. So I draw my eyes like super close together, but here it's further apart, but still recognizable that I drew it.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I would recognize this as one of yours. That's great. That's really cool, like detail about the process of this. I remember when I had my plushie, they sent me like 3 or 4 before it looked.
Yeah, and like I could send you like the first one in the revisions if you wanted to show your students, because the first one is funny as heck. It's super, super funny.
I had a blue monster that I had made for mine, and the first one they sent me was like 3 shades lighter on everything. It looked like it had just like looked into something very scary, and it was
like the nose was turned up, and like the fabric was weird, and it looks so different from the first one and the last one. Some factories it's very close, but the corgi, I was like, what is this? So we had to change, and it's normal, but it's always fun to see the process of you're close, but no.
Yeah.
But I like it's always fun. I tell people too, like if you see it, don't get discouraged, just keep going. I think corgi took about 8 revisions.
Wow.
and they were very patient. It just the ears was frustrating because they didn't understand. Like, no, they have to stand up.
Yeah. That's incredible. So, for those of you at home, it might take 8 tries to get something to turn out the way you like it to.
Yes.
It's not to discourage you. Keep going. I also like that he's got a little chest puffed out so he doesn't fall over, because you would imagine he'd be a little top heavy and go purr,
Yeah.
which is great because corgi in Welsh literally means short dog.
Really?
It does.
I
Yes.
did not know that.
Yes, I will. I'll be happy to tell you all things Welsh language after this. This is one of my hobbies. So you clearly like corgis, and all sorts of other dogs. But what is your favorite dog, if you had to
So
choose?
I have corgis is one of my favorite dogs. I have Gravity, which is my first dog, and I still have her. She is 7 this year, and actually the end of the month.
Happy birthday.
And so she's and then my favorite is Japanese Akita, where let me see if let's go.
Hello.
Yeah, so she's a girl and she's very sweet. So I have 2 of these, and they're my favorite because I wanted these type of dogs since I was a teenager. And my first one, I had to go all the way to California to get him. I live in Ohio. And this one, she was born in Virginia. And I do fun things where you show dogs, and I do sports, and I teach her tricks, and she has fancy titles on her name. Like, she is novice trick dog. She does nose work. She's learning to jump off of docks, like into water. She's
cool.
learning to pull weights. She's learning to chase something really, really fast. So, and she gets points. So when I'm not drawing, I do stuff with my dogs pretty much. And I like getting and you get ribbons and stuff, and it's fun, but I just like, if they're happy, I'm happy.
And they seem happy from what I've seen you post. They look like they're having the best time.
Yeah, it's lots of money doing it, but just like, it's like a hobby, you go out and you just have fun with nothing. And I recommend that a hobby for like many people, or have a hobby that you're not looking for money or for, to get better, just to have fun.
Yeah.
And that's what I do with like dog sports. But yeah, my favorite breed is definitely the Akita, which is like the same breed as Hachi. And there's
one of my students was like, that dog that they drew looked a lot like this dog, and they pulled it up on their computer.
Yes.
Like, let's talk about this for a while. And half the kids who knew was like, I love that movie. And the other half was like, it's so sad.
I only watched it once, and I couldn't watch it again.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't make me watch sad things happen to wonderful dogs. Don't look dogs. And how did dogs become your favorite thing to draw?
So I grew up, when I was maybe 11, I had a dog. But before then, I preferred dogs. I think my mom could have never let me have a dog, only because we grew up, we couldn't own one because we lived in a rented house. But my friends had dogs, and I watched dog movies. Like, I liked like 101 Dalmatians and Balto and anything with dogs. I just think they're cute. And so I only drew dogs growing up. And I had people tease me like, you'll never get a job just drawing dogs.
Where are they now?
Exactly. And I had somebody in high school was so nasty about that. But literally my full-time job now is drawing dogs. And I sometimes draw other things where, like, I would draw Minions or Elmo, and they're fun too. But I'm really lucky that the majority of them, like, please design this dog character.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think mainly it's because I just grew up having lots of love for dogs. And I didn't have many friends growing up, so I had no motivation to draw people, but dogs are cool.
I mean, all dogs are good dogs.
Yes.
People sometimes less so. Let me see what else is next on here, because we're kind of going a little bit out of order. Your art is incredibly easy to recognize from a distance, and it's easy to pick out something that you've done. How did you sort of go about developing a style to draw in? So
I really like animation, like movies. And if you look at concept art, it's drawn kind of a similar way, where it's very simple shapes, it's easier to take that and animate it, or very simple because you have to work quickly. And I
Right.
also like kids books.
Hmm.
And I do some kids book, but I mainly work in animation. And but yeah, the style, I just like taking something really, really simple and making it recognizable rather than a lot of detail. And some of it's because I just think it's way more fun. I have friends who work with a lot of detail, and they think it's so much more fun than what I do. And I think it's great. I'm like, That's fun." It's like, yeah, I love it. And they can't comprehend I draw something simple, but there's no bad way to draw. It's just whatever you enjoy. So for me, it's just more fun to problem solve. Like, how can I make a dog with a few shapes and still make it look like a German Shepherd and not a poodle or something, or a corgi or a
Yeah.
husky.
We were talking a little bit about that on your specifically your Iron Man. I guess the Iron Man was kind of a German Shepherd looking dog.
Yes.
If I could pull it up, I would. But on that drawing, you were able to obviously use the color and the shape of the dog to make it look like this hero character.
Mhm.
And you had taken a complicated costume with all these little bits
Mm.
and moving pieces that have, you know,
Yeah.
become Iron Man. And you were able to simplify them with using simple circles and like just straight and bumpy
Yeah.
lines. And it was instantly
Oh,
recognizable
thank
as what it
you.
was supposed
Yeah.
to be. And that's the sign of a really, really good and successful design where
Thank
you don't
you.
necessarily have to make it like photorealistic for it to be understood and
Correct.
recognizable. That
And
was
then
really cool.
I'll see a lot of artists where they like I would see like Marvel art or any where they take like a kid or Iron Man or Captain America or Spider-Man, and it's so some of them could get it so simple where it's only even less shapes in me, but you know who it is. And I think that's something I want to do, where they really know design so much that they could confidently say like this, and it looks like Iron Man.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really cool. Like even with the German Shepherd, where Iron Man is kind of really smug and he's very, proud, and he's kind of pompous and he's a little bit of a jerk, but he wants to help people, which
Yeah.
is like a German Shepherd. And so I had to take his
Oh
costume and make it work on a dog, or you have to like I think it's the arc reactor. I shifted it down to the chest, but I didn't want to put on the stomach. And
yeah.
the shoulder bits, you have to put it where the human shoulders over here, but dog shoulders are closer to like,
Like here.
let's go. Come on,
Help us, doggy.
So like the dog shoulders are here,
Right.
not here. So a human is like up here. This is a dog shoulder. Hi,
Dog's
baby.
like, I'm loving this. I'm
Yeah.
helping.
And so we're like, your elbow is like this. A
Mhm.
dog elbow is like here.
Right.
And so parts of the costume you have to kind of modify it so it naturally moves on a dog. And that's what I like doing a lot. It's just okay, how can I translate it so realistically a dog can wear that? And so it's also learning how dogs, like the anatomy and stuff, which helps that I show dogs, so I have to know
Right.
structure. And I'm very new to it. Like even the Iron Man, I learn every day. I might revisit that piece and improve it, because now I know structure even more. And that's the thing where it's okay if you make something 3 years ago and be like, oh, I know how to improve that again,
Yeah.
which is good. It's okay to like come back and improve things if you learned. Were like, because I like Iron Man a lot, so I think I want to take that piece and like rework it, because I think my colors has gotten better, the anatomy, robotics kind of got a little better. Robotics are difficult.
Yeah. They are.
Yes, so it's fun to doing in like the simple shapes.
That's terrific. So, I mean, also it's probably nice to look back at your artwork and see how you've grown too. So, like, if
Yeah.
something looks different a couple years ago, that's probably a good thing because
Yes.
generally, your progression might be slow, but it's still going upwards,
Correct.
which is pretty great. So, I know that one of the things that I do is I do sculpting out of clay. So, something I made this year will look pretty similar to the year before, but something I make this year might look very different to something I made 3 or 4 years
Yes,
ago. And
correct.
then sometimes like, oh, well, I have to rephotograph everything I've put online because it looks different now. Which is usually a nice problem to have because it
Yes,
means you're
exactly.
better at something. Um, let's see. What else? So when you're talking about making the fan art for like the Iron Man dog and Captain
Mhm.
America dog and all of those things, you've done a lot of stuff with Marvel and Star Wars. Um, and I know that you sometimes have those at conventions. So how does that work? Because Disney owned property is sometimes kind of like a no fan
So
art zone.
basically, so my dogs kind of fall under something called parody.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so basically, because it's Iron Man dog, but it's not really Iron Man, it's a dog.
Mhm.
And we're like, I would make Kylo Ren, but like, how can I make it so it's Kylo Ren, but as a dog? And I have friends and stuff who would like sell just regular Kylo Ren or regular
Right.
Iron Man. And usually at conventions, they don't mind, but at any time they could be like, it depends on who sees the art.
Okay.
And like, for example, I don't really sell art of, let me think of a character, Rocket Raccoon, where he's an actual, that's the character. I can't modify it. Like
Right.
I could make him a cat, I can make him a whale, a dog, but he's recognizable as raccoon. That's what he is. So that's a little more difficult,
Yeah, yeah, I
rather,
imagine so.
rather than just Captain America dog. But if I just do Captain America at conventions, it could be okay, but it might not.
So far, no
Yeah.
one's told you to stop.
Correct. Now,
Right.
once they did when I drew Rocket Raccoon,
Oh,
because
okay.
it's just regular. And when that happens, you just be like, okay. And it was just a print, so it wasn't
Mhm.
bad. They said, oh, you could keep drawing it, just don't sell it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's good. So companies love fan art. They love it. I think when you want to make money, it's a little difficult.
Yeah.
But I do it for fun.
Yeah.
I love drawing fan art. It's fun when the character is done and you could just have fun with it rather than think, which I enjoy. And I actually enjoy, Marvel, and I watch anime and I watch movies, and then I can still problem solve it, turn him into a dog.
My students loved the My Hero Academia dogs that
Oh,
you
thank you.
they loved those. They were like, "Oh, recognize those." And then they were having so much fun telling me about them. I was like, "Darlings, this is great, but this isn't a show I've had time to watch. I recognize it, and you're telling me all these things that you're excited about, and I have no idea what you're saying. I'm so sorry." So that'll have to be on my list of things to watch at some point. Because I recognize the characters, but I don't recognize them enough to know anything else about them.
And that's a funny case too, because I drew so much of the Hero Academia dogs, and like the voice actors and Funimation and Viz, all of it. Like the voice actor of like all my, like found me at a convention, like grabbed me and like put me in front of his line and wanted to meet me. And he
Oh my
wanted,
goodness, that's wonderful.
he's very sweet. He's like he acts just like the character, which is nice. And like Deku is very nice. His voice actor, Aizawa, which is like a teacher character, he's very, very sweet. Like the voice, it's interesting talking to the people like behind the voice, and the one in Japan for Deku loved the pins I made.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like you could still draw fan art and sell it, and a lot of times companies will love it, and it depends on the company,
I'm sure it does.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
that's great.
the drawing the hero ones were fun because I had to read like, what are you, what dog are you, because I try to make each one a specific like dog breed,
Yeah.
so that was fun.
Well, they worked really well because
Thank you.
especially as someone who doesn't recognize the show too much,
Oh,
but
good.
the characters, I'm like, well, that makes sense for that one because from what I've seen, they have this hairstyle or they have this sort of like body type when I see pictures that my students draw from the show or reverse
That's
screen
nice.
caps and things
Cool.
like that. So even though I don't know their names, I'm like, I know exactly who that is and I understand exactly why that was the choice that was made for it. That's great.
Yeah.
So about doing art things as a job.
Mhm.
So a lot of the things that we were introduced, you have NDAs for, which means
Yes.
the no talking sort of zone. It's super secret spy project.
Correct.
So how long do NDAs usually last for?
So it depends. For example, depends on the company. Some is you can never share the artwork ever, which I hate. It's annoying, but it's rules. Some of them are like in 4 years. Some of them is in 2 years. And some of them I can't show at all because it's, for example, let's say the Blues Clues, where I did a lot of, they asked me, so the blue character, the main character, they asked me redesign the character completely, but still recognizable. And I had so much fun with it. And they end up going with another design. They actually went just the original design, just 3D,
Yeah.
you know? And no, I did something, same thing with Sesame Street. I did 2 of them. And which I also redesigned existing characters. And for those projects, I'm not sure if they are made yet or if they just stopped the project completely. And so a lot of them are strict where they're like, if you tell anybody, you go to jail. I won't go to jail. It's just you get in trouble, you know. It's simpler to say you go to jail, you know. But
you go to art jail.
Exactly. And
Oh, no.
I feel bad for Friends, for example, or like, for example, I worked on Hasbro and there's something I really enjoy and I can't say anything, which is a pain. And some of it got announced and I'm just like, finally, you know. So it's, I did a little bit of, there's a new My Little Pony movie. I think it's a movie. And I just did products, but I got shown the characters like last year. And
Okay.
I'm just like, oh, and I couldn't say anything. And now they got announced. I'm like, okay, good.
Don't
So I just kind
spoil
of keep everything secret. Like I can't even tell my sister or my mom, because my sister or mom could accidentally say to somebody else and they tell another friend. And suddenly the things are trying to wait until like, it's like a surprise party where it's not fun if the person knows. It's
Yeah,
fun when it's a
right.
surprise. So they want to announce like, this is the new characters, you know. And it's always annoying because you want to talk about it, but you can't.
I mean, and rightfully so. I mean, you should be proud of the stuff that you get to work on.
Yeah.
Not being able to talk about it kind of sucks a bit of the joy out of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now, this might be a question you might not be able to answer. So, out of all of the projects for like TV shows, toy production, sort of stuff that other people might recognize that you've worked for, what has been your favorite?
I think it was Blue's Clues, because
Yeah.
that was another thing where like I love Blue as a kid. I watched like the original where they had Steve, and I love Blue. And so they ran, I remember exactly, I was at a Japanese market and I always check my phone and I got an email from Nickelodeon all like, hey, do you want to work on Blue's Clues a little bit? And I was so excited. And I couldn't tell my roommates or anything, but it just because it's a property I really like. Now, Sesame Street 2, I loved. The 2 things for Hasbro I loved, but if I had to pick a favorite, it would definitely be Blue's Clues. Like I think that was super fun working on something I like actively watched as a kid.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Like I drew Blue as a kid, so it was fun, you know.
I mean, it was some kind of magic watching Steve draw things so simply and so
Right.
beautifully and effectively on his
He's
little notebook.
it's
Making many mistakes.
crazy.
So brave drawing
Yeah.
with a giant crayon. What if you mess up? It was so stressful and magic to watch.
And I still mess up too, so he did it very well.
Guy's magic.
Mhm.
So one of the other questions that people had was,
Mhm.
did you watch these things as a kid? So that must be really cool. What do you
Yeah.
think? Do you think little you would believe grown up you if you said to them, hey, you get to work on this when you grow up?
No, that's absolutely not. Like I would not have believed it. And it's funny because sometimes I think everybody gets it where you kind of feel bad about your artwork or you feel bad about, but then you remind yourself like, okay, well, will little you be really proud of you right now? And little me would definitely be. And so that I kind of have to remind myself, because sometimes you compare like, oh, well, what if I was working on that movie? Or what if I was working on more something else? But it's nice to know that like I'm in a position that many people would dream of, for example.
Yeah.
And And I think a lot of people have it where they want to compare themselves to other people. And I'm getting better, which is good. But that's a good thing to remind yourself that if I had me as little right in front of me, they would be like shocked in a good way. So
Yeah.
it's nice, because it's the self-esteem and it's the confidence, but you get a little better every day, especially if you, how do I say it? You don't give in on saying mean things to yourself. Like my drawings are really bad, or I'm a bad person, or I'm not good at running. I'm not this. And for example, me, I'm really bad at running, but I could run a little further now. Or I'm learning Japanese. I studied last year in Japan for a year,
Yeah.
and I'm not as good as some of my friends, but before, when I first started, I was much better. So it's
Yeah.
kind of compare yourself from point A to current, and it just gets better.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it's the I went on a tangent of it, but yeah, like I think little me would be super excited knowing that they watch Blue's Clues. Yeah.
Yeah. Be nice to yourself. Little you is probably very happy
Yeah.
about what you did. And it's I know it's really easy to compare yourself to others,
Yeah.
especially, I mean, I get that a lot with teaching. And I will have students who get really frustrated because something that they're trying to draw isn't turning out the way they want it to. And then, usually the first thing I ask them is, have you ever done this before? And most of the time they say, no, I haven't. And then I say, well, look at you. This is the first time you've done it. Imagine how much better it's going to be the next time you try it out.
And that's something I have to remind myself too, where I'm drawing, I don't know, a tiger or something, or my first time, or drawing another breed of dog, or a tiger, or a walrus. I'm like, well, this is really bad. I'm like, yeah, it is, because it's the first time, but it's not a bad thing. Because in 5 drawings down, it's gonna look much better. And then another 5 and another 5 and another, and so just doing a little bit every day, or even like me in Japanese, you learn one extra word.
Yeah.
You better than yesterday. Now I know how to say refrigerator,
How do you say refrigerator? Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know how to say refrigerator in Japanese. I took Japanese for 3 years.
I think Deizoko is refrigerator. For some odd reason, I remember that one like crazy.
Where my elbow is, there's some Japanese language books that we can't see, but
oh, cool. I have some over here too. I have to relearn.
Nice. So let me scroll down here. We answered all of those in that collection. So when you get emails from Nickelodeon, which is amazing, and other places like that, how do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
So a lot of times they just kind of find me on social media. I think like Twitter. Nice. Or Instagram, and sometimes Facebook, but mainly I think Twitter and Instagram. I also have like a website that just shows my drawings.
Yeah, we looked at that.
Yeah, and then it'll have about me, like I worked on this and this and this, so my resume. So a lot of times they just find me, or sometimes I get recommended, or like somebody. A few times people I really look up to or offer the job, but they're too busy, or they didn't like it, or not didn't like it, they didn't think it was a good fit, because I had jobs I didn't think I was a good fit for. And so they would send them to me, where like, oh, but I know Naomi draws dogs. I know Naomi could do, something similar. And it's always exciting getting emails, because I have to kind of reread it. And I'm like, should I let it sit for like 20 minutes? Because I don't want to look too excited.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what is I have to wait? I'm gonna write it and not send it immediately. And then it's the excitement of it, like make it so I don't look too desperate. But but you still want to reply quickly, so they don't be like, oh, do they really want it? Should I go to somebody else?
It's a hard balance to get to.
It is. Because sometimes I would respond like with under a minute.
Yeah. Just answer yes, please.
Yes.
That's it. Send. I like that a lot. So a lot of it just happens to be someone sees your stuff and they recommend you. I mean, I'm sure some of it's luck.
Yes.
The right person sees it, and there you go.
Correct.
That's great. So you also did this amazing personal project of Anxiety Fox, which I have seen all over the place, and you've
Yep.
been doing that for, I know that the sort of toy and stuff has been out for a couple of years now.
I think it was since 2017 or 18.
Yeah.
And I have their birthday is in May, is when I like found the first
Oh,
one. I went back on Instagram for years and be like, okay, there's the first drawing I ever posted of the character. And at least in terms of not the real birthday, but of the online birthday, because I
right.
drew it so much, but I never shared it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, do you know about how long you've been drawing Anxiety Fox, like as your sort of comfort go-to drawing when you're feeling overwhelmed?
Roughly, I feel like roughly maybe like 5 or 6 years, because especially at conventions where I'm stressed, because for example, that's where they also comparing, or like
Oh yeah,
sometimes my table was a little not too busy, and then somebody 2 rows down is like has a long line or something, and then, or I'm just randomly thinking of like, oh, I wish I did that, and but it's then I'll start getting some anxiety, so I would just draw a little fox that's super super simple, because if it's too complicated then I get stressed like this is
right.
bad, but just something simple and I'll fill a page. And I did that so much, or even at my house or at my mom's or in a plane, just a little fox. And I didn't want to share, because what if people said, well, suck it up, or you're being too dramatic,
Yeah,
or, you're being, grow up or something. So I never shared. But then when I did, it was nice. People like, oh, I feel that too. It's okay. Or like people I look up to, it's like, oh, I relate. So it's nice that it's not as that now kids, I think, which I'm so happy, they're taking it more seriously. Because
mm-hmm.
me growing up is just like, well, you should just grow up. You're being too shy. You're being too
How dare you have emotions and
exactly.
experience
And
things?
so
Oh,
it makes me super happy. Like I go to conventions, like, oh, my daughter has anxiety, so we started doing this and this.
mm-hmm.
And if she doesn't want to go to a family gathering, I don't let her. I let her go her own time, and it's nice. And it
Yeah,
makes kids are want to talk about their emotions a lot more,
mm-hmm.
where like me, I had to repress it. And my mom, uh she realized I was bad, but she did her best. I love my mom. It's just so new to her. She come from Mexico,
Yeah,
and she apologized like, no, it's okay, you're the best mom ever. It's just something that's so new. And now I have a little brother, and he now knows it much more, because I taught my mom how to recognize it.
yeah,
And so it's nice to know that I'm not alone when it comes to anxiety or feeling sad or feeling anxious. And it makes me want to draw more, instead of saying, oh, I'm just weird. So
yeah.
I'm normal. This is how I cope.
And I think those are the normal range of human emotions. When you have
Yeah.
the stuff that you would always like to have, you'd always like to be happy, you'd always like to
Mhm.
be stress free. But on the other side of those things, you really can't experience that sort of like, stress free time and happy time if you don't experience the sort of less fun stuff. If you're
Yes.
not anxious or scared or sad or angry, like
Yeah.
all those are important to have.
And if
Um,
some people
your own mind.
feel more anxious than others, because some people will, I love going to parties, or I don't like that person who doesn't like is still normal. It's just, for example, my dogs. One of my dogs loves meeting people, the other one doesn't. Does that mean the other one's a bad dog? No, she's a great dog. She just doesn't like meeting other people. And sometimes I mention dogs, and people like, oh, okay, now it makes sense, because I don't like going to parties, or I do some, but I like 20 minutes and I'm tired.
Yeah, it's exhausting being that excited all the time, and
Yes.
sometimes it can just be too much, and you can get worried about when is it appropriate time to like maybe tiptoe on out of here.
Yeah.
There's
I
a
have,
lot of things that
yeah,
that make people anxious, and they shouldn't necessarily be ashamed of it.
exactly.
I was talking about, I hate mowing the lawn. It terrifies me. Big noises, big broom. I don't like it. It's scary. I want to have a heart attack every time I mow the lawn because I am like that. Am
Yeah. And
I okay with handling a big 5 foot python in a tank that's right across the room? Totally fine.
yeah,
Everyone's anxious
exactly.
is something different, I think. Um, Now, you were able to get such a beautiful response from this that you've done, I think, at least two Kickstarters for
Oh man,
Anxiety
for
Fox?
Anxiety Fox, I did
Because I knew you did the
3.
first one.
So I'm at 5 now, actually, because
Ooh,
my one now, I think it's a couple of days left. And each time I'm just like, it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail.
No.
And I'm like that, where it never gets any easier. It's people like, oh, aren't you excited it's gonna do better? I'm like, nope, it's gonna fail. It's just
Everyone's gonna drop out at the last second and
exactly. It's so stressful.
it
And
is.
but it's nice to know that people, because I think my favorite part is when people message me and like, I gave this to my daughter, I gave this to my brother, my coworker, and they would give me a story. And that's like my favorite part of the entire project is sometimes I would send them to free to some people and stuff. For example, somebody's house burned out
Mm.
and they lost everything and they lost two pets, and that broke my heart. And they said, oh, my friend gifted me the anxiety fox again, and so they have daughters. I'm like, can I just send you guys more?
Yeah.
And so they were super appreciative, and I paid for everything, I sent them over. And because in the end my characters were created to make people feel happy and
Yeah.
bring comfort. Like, I also want to send some to like therapy offices and
Yeah. Actually,
doctors
my
and like
school might be getting a
schools.
couple of them.
Yeah, I would
We had
love,
a
yeah,
conversation
just
about it
message me.
with
And I
our
like donating, and just because of the spirit of the character is to help people. It's not just I like making money. I want what I like doing most is helping people. If I have one purpose is to help people, I would rather make no money but make a difference than be rich and be greedy.
yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I like doing. Like, as you get older, I want to like do more for people, donate my time, donate. um I have so much dreams of like, I want to buy somebody their own show dog, I want to send somebody to Japan, somebody needs money if they're getting kicked out. Um it sucks being anxious about many things.
Yeah.
And so I want to like give more. So like, yeah, so when people message me about like, my son loved this, he sleeps at night with it, I love it. And sometimes I get so much, it's hard for me to respond to anybody much
Right.
because I get so stressed about
It's overwhelming
messages.
the amount of
Yeah,
love being thrown at you.
yeah, but I try to respond as much as I can because it's so sweet.
Yeah.
And it like makes my day. you know it's like, I love, this is cute, thank you, I love it. But when it's like, this helps my son sleep at night, I love it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think it follows a character perfectly.
Yeah.
you know
You're enacting real change, and that's absolutely wonderful.
no, thank you.
I think for many, many years, people are gonna associate this, if kids are buying it or if grown-ups are buying it, I think they're always gonna look at it and smile and say, I'm really happy that I have this thing that is personified in something very cute that is helping me feel a little bit less
Yeah,
stressed, and they like the story behind it.
yeah. And then people always ask like, why is it white? It's hard to clean. My dog is so funny. Every time she yawns, she like screams. If you hear her, she
Yeah.
sounds like she's whimpering. She's just yawning.
Yeah, I figured as much.
But it's white because the character was always a sketch. And
Oh, fair.
so that's why no matter, all of them are white for that reason.
My students had asked if it was based off of a fennec fox, which I thought was a really nice observation because those are very big-eared, very pale foxes.
I love fennec. So basically what it is Arctic fox.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and the story I made, which is super funny, is in the summer is the winter coat, which is white.
Mhm.
And in the winter, it's the black coat. So it's like opposite.
It
So
is,
it makes
yeah.
it even more anxious. Like, I don't have the correct coat.
You
But
can see
it makes me want to draw like a little fennec version of anxiety fox, because
Yeah.
I've drawn them a few times and they're super, like I held one once and they're tiny. They're small. I keep forgetting that they are tiny.
Yeah, like 90% of them is just ears, and the rest is like, oh,
Yeah, they're like
a little thing.
90% ear.
They're like this guy.
Yeah.
I had some students ask a selection of a sort of have you ever drawn
Yeah.
questions. So, question number one: have you ever drawn a bumblebee?
Yes, very small in a book, but I haven't drawn like a big bumblebee, but I want to, because if you go on the internet, you will see people post photos of them like their butts hanging out of flowers. and
Bumblebees
it's
are
so
cute.
cute.
They're so cute.
Yeah. And I love honey. Like it's one of my dreams to have like a honey hive, but I need to
Yeah.
buy another house for that. But I would love to draw like another like actual illustration of like bumblebees or just honeybees because I think bumblebees don't do anything. It's the honeybees that make. I think bumblebees do pollinate. They're still good,
Yeah, yeah, they're
and
pollinators.
they're
I don't
and they're
know.
cuter because they're like fluffier.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah.
cute. Um, yeah. We have a bunch of carpenter bees that look like bumblebees at around the
Yeah.
farm I grew up, and they're very curious, but they're very clumsy. So they're just like, "Hey, how's it going? Oh, it's fine." They're like, "Have you seen any trees here for me
Yeah,
to
don't
eat?"
they like hit things
They do. They're
gently?
very bad at everything. They're very cute, so they can't ever be made fun of for it. They're
Mhm.
like, "No, no, you're doing fine,
Yeah,
sweetie.
they're
You're
so
doing okay."
cute. Like I like when they like hit things. I'm like, are you okay? And they fly and then they just go on their way and like, okay.
I got it. You didn't see it. I'm cool. I'm fine. Everything's great. Have you ever drawn a cat?
A cat? Yes.
Big fan of
I
dogs. Big fan of cats as well.
yes,
I
I
have a
have
cat.
a cat. My
That's right.
one of my cat is Lucas, his name is, and he is 15 years old. And I don't know if you heard him meowing later.
I
He's so
I
loud.
did
Yes. I
earlier.
had to send my sister like get the cat. But I drew dog cats. Like a lot of people ask me to draw their cats on commission.
Yeah.
And I draw my because now he has like one tooth, just one fang, and he looks so funny. And but like if I prefer cats or I still love cats. My cat is like he knows he's like the king of my house. So whenever I get to draw cats, it's fun. So like if you go on my Twitter, I have like ones that they're like floating. I need to draw more cats, honestly. And I do get hired often to characters on cats.
Hmm.
But I need to share more. It looks like I just draw dogs, but I love drawing cats too.
Okay.
Mm.
Wonderful. Have you ever drawn an English bulldog?
Yes, I've drawn at a convention. I draw several, just like where it's I draw ink,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to draw more because they're fun looking. Like
Silly dog.
I like, especially when I go at dog shows, I stare at them. I'm like, they have like the little curly tail, and they're just built differently because they have. My friend told me the other day they have so much muscle on like in the front
Mm-hmm.
that they have to stand a certain way, and so they not muscle, so they the way they're so top heavy, so they need to get more muscle, so that's why they're so strong in the front. They do like this
Yeah.
is
Like
because
going through the push-up.
they're using more effort to keep themselves up, so that's why they always look so muscular. And it's so interesting, like, oh, okay, that would make sense. Like that's why, like, some dogs just look more built than
Mhm.
others because how they are carrying their body weight. But they are cute because they're like lazy and they just want to
Great.
cuddle. My
So good.
coworker used to my old job had one, and she lived so long, like 18 years.
Wonderful news.
And yeah, I need to draw more, honestly. They're cute dogs. Like I like whenever I see them.
I think every English bulldog I've met has just been so full of personality.
They're so
Uh, they're
funny.
very
They're so funny.
um have you all ever drawn a French bulldog? A lot of bulldog questions.
Yes. I have a friend who has a French bulldog. Another thing, funny thing with them. So my roommate's sister has one. Her name is Nina. So she's like the tan color, like light tan.
Okay, yeah.
And my corgi, my sister met her first, and she's like, she sounds like a turkey. And I'm like, okay. So I came over. No, she sounds like a turkey. It's weird. She's like the gobbling.
Huh.
And it's so funny. And then my corgi as a puppy met her. She did not like her because she's just so hyper.
Yeah.
And she's so sweet. You would not think this little dog weighs so much because she
They're
would just
like
jump on you and you're like, whoa, because it's just on your knees, like, oh my God, you weigh so much. It's just because the muscle. And I like enjoyed drawing them. I drew my friend's Frenchie, and she also has a Boston Terrier. And they're so much fun because just they're like jowls and they have big ears, which
Yeah.
are cute. They are cute. So I actually have a few friends. I think I should draw your dog.
One of my good pals they moved away, but they had a bunch of Frenchies. And they were just like snorty little silly
Yeah.
little pigs. I was very honored that they did end up naming one of theirs unofficially Wrinkles McFoldy Snorts after what I kept
Oh.
calling it.
That's no,
Wrinkles McFoldy Snorts.
we were at a dog show once. My sister sitting on the ground on her phone, and one was just like snorting right up in her face. Like, and we're like, oh, and they're like, and the owner's like, oh no, I'm so sorry. We're like, no, it's okay. It's just suddenly Frenchy face in your phone. There's and at the dog, there's like all pristine and like pretty looking, and then suddenly just snorting. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, they snore when they're sleeping and when they're awake and any time in between. They're great. What is the art piece that you think you're probably most proud of if you had to pick?
If I had to pick one, it would probably be, I think you had it up. I made it like, can you stop yawn? She's like so funny. She's
You're
like yawn.
boring her.
Yeah, she's so funny. She's like, yeah, I need to take her on a walk. But like I have an Akita and Chiba piece
Hmm.
and with the lanterns. That's probably one of
Yes.
my favorite ones
That's
because
your Twitter picture right now.
yes,
Yeah.
it's because a lot of people confuse the two. They think they look just alike because of colors. So I'm
Mm.
like, okay, well, I'll put them next to each other because the Shiba's face is thinner.
Hmm.
The Akita is more bulky, and even like the face markings are different, and the
Yeah.
tails. Like a lot of people think all Shiba tails are like the curly.
Hmm.
A lot of times they just kind of go like
We're drawings.
yeah.
Oh boy.
So like it's a dog. So a lot of people think it curls like this, which is technically right. But a lot of times Shiba tails do this too. And let me redraw that. So like that probably. So I'd lot. I mean, they do it, but like a lot of people think Shiba tails only do kind of the curly like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
But a lot of times they actually do this too.
Yeah.
And when you show them, they could look like that. They just kind of they curl a little more than that.
Hmm.
But not all of them look like this.
Right.
But all Akitas have to look like that.
Hmm.
And it's a new fact I've learned when I made that piece. Like, oh, I'm gonna make it like the correct tail, not the correct tail, but like one of the correct tails. And I know it will confuse people because people are so used that they only do the curl,
Yeah.
you know. And but I love the Japanese dogs. I love. They're fun. They're my favorite dog breed, and I enjoy working with them. And so I want to do more of the breeds and more pieces with them. And in terms like other pieces, I like any of mine with my little wolf characters and everything.
They're very cute. That's great.
Yeah.
So you, if I'm not mistaken, most of the work that you do is done on a digital art
Yes.
program. Do you one have any that you particularly like that you would recommend to my students? They usually use Sketchbook app
Yes.
because
So
it's free.
uh so what I started doing is, let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, I'm just gonna do a random illustration. So when I lived in Japan for about a year, I had an iPad. I had a computer with a tablet, like a laptop, and it was so annoying, but I still wanted to draw. So I started working
That's
on an
kind of what they use. They
iPad.
use one of these. It's like a
Yes.
tablet computer.
And so I started working on an iPad on Art Studio Pro. And Art Studio Pro, I think, is free.
Okay.
But since then, I've been working only on my iPad. Like I have, like you see, I have like a company sent this to me, like this big tablet,
Ooh.
and I work on it only for like work. But when I'm waiting for this like to load up. But I have an iPad which is like maybe $200. Like I had like the first generation where they allowed like the pen, but it doesn't have the
Ooh.
tip. I lost it.
Oh no.
Yeah, but people had like pros. I bought a pro and I don't like it nearly as much as like my cheap iPad. So like I think like Clip Studio Paint, like art, what is it called, Procreate.
Yeah, I hear Procreate's a really popular one. That one,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I think you pay for and it's blocked by their.
So I think it was like $6 or something. Some of them are like free though, and they're like nice. And Art Studio, I think I paid $10 once for it. And I'm just trying to show an example of,
Yeah, our students used to have iPads, but they had to turn those in at around Christmas to get a Chromebook instead. And my students who really like doing digital art kind of say that the iPads were way better than the Chromebooks. They're a little grumpy about it. They're
yeah,
like,
like
"I
for
wanna give
example,
up
like
my
this is like
iPad."
a cat piece I made, but like I just literally just like I literally just draw on my iPad. Let me see if I can pull that up again. So yeah, so like
There you go.
on that. So there's like a kitties.
Yeah,
It's hard
yeah,
to see them, but yeah,
yeah.
it's like it just goes to the point where like I can't use this big one because I tried. I could do like this,
Oh,
and
that's
that doesn't allow
nice.
it.
Oh, it doesn't do it on the big one?
Yeah, like you
So
can like
strange.
not this version, like maybe like the Wacom maybe,
Mhm.
but uh so I can't use it, but um so I don't have anything fancy. I have the cheapest iPad, the cheapest pencil, and I drew it professionally on this. Like I do literally like all my professional work on my iPad.
That's wonderful.
And so you don't need big, expensive anything to get into drawing. Like I remember they have tablets where just you draw and you still look on the computer, and and I
Mhm.
had that forever. And you don't like, technically the professionals is Photoshop, but it's expensive. It's like
This
$10
is
a month. And so for a kid, um, you could get even cheaper iPads now. They're on like, I think Airs or like minis. I think my friend has one. And you just, and even phones now, sometimes I just draw on my phone.
yeah, some of my
Yeah.
students will draw on their phones when their Chromebooks don't work.
Yeah, and it's
Amazing.
great. I love it. And
Yeah.
it's, you know, but yeah, I think a lot of people are switching over to iPad. Like I'm probably one of the few who doesn't like the Pro. It's so expensive, and I like my cheap little like reliable thing that like is 5 years old, and this is the same one I had with me and I was in Japan. And and like I literally, my mom has my Pro now, she for work, and I'm like, so it's just, I'm so used to this thing.
You use what you love.
Like another thing too is, I don't know if you could see it,
Mhm.
but like let me pull it out, but I have like a cover,
Yeah.
so it
Okay.
feels like more like paper because it's kind of
Oh,
smooth,
okay.
and I
Yeah.
cannot draw without that thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so yeah, this is literally the cheapo pencil. You can even get cheaper, like off brand. you know
Yeah, no,
so
the other art teacher has a pencil that they use. I think they still have their iPad. I think that they're gonna have to pry it from their cold dead hands. Basically. They bought one on Amazon. I think it was like a $30 pencil.
yeah,
It does exactly what it needs to.
yep, and it's great. Like you do not need expensive stuff at all if you want like a tablet-y thing. Like I'm really happy about like the iPad doing pencils that's not on the Pro, because that's like $800. And it's like, you don't need that. you know
I would like to pay rent if I had the choice between buying a pencil and paying rent. I think I might pay rent instead. Yeah. Do you have any advice to give to my students who are really starting to get into all sorts of things art for middle school?
Okay, so if for middle school, and also if you want to do art as a career, and this is advice that I wish I was told when I was younger, is it's boring, but you can make it fun, is get into life drawing, which is basically like, and people think what they do is why I never did it. It's like, oh, it's boring. I don't want to make a realistic, my dog sleeping and make every little fur. That's boring. But what you could do is like observe. Like you could still make it a little cartoony. You could still make it fun. Like I'm just going to use color. Just, you're trying to train your brain to see instead of think. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like I'm drawing what's in front of me, my dog's ears. I'm not imagining, well, this is, I think dog ears look like. No,
Yeah.
and do it like a few times a day. And by the time you're like out of high school, you will probably like be way better than me, because I have to reteach my stuff now. I'm taking like little classes and stuff because I've never went to art school. So
Oh, okay.
I was a criminology major, and I dropped out because I really just wanted to get into art. And I keep telling myself, if somehow 10 years down the line art doesn't work out, which hopefully it keeps doing well, I like criminology. So that's my back. It's fun. I like doing any of that. But the life drawing, as soon as it's like, I will show you examples of fun life drawing and you'll be like, oh, that actually looks really, really fun. And I encourage students to do that. And so once like 5 to even 1 year into it, you'll be like, oh my God, suddenly I know to draw poses much better. My poses are much more lively, and gestures are look much better. And also just have fun. If you want to draw anime, do it. If you just want to draw dogs, do it. I hate when people are like, well, you shouldn't draw anime or dogs, or, you know, your dumb little comic, or some dumb little things that like discourage people. Like, have fun.
Yeah.
If you want to still try to do the technical stuff, like, yeah, the life drawing and studies, like, hey, I'm gonna learn, master drawing cubes, cylinders, and cubes and cones. Because if you draw those 3, you could draw anything. That's what I'm teaching myself now.
Really can.
I am going to be 30 this year, and I'm now starting it. So, and it's and there's like, I could show you a website too, which is like free, and it makes it so much fun, you know.
Yeah, I would love for that link. I can see if it's accessible to students. The internet's weird, so sometimes they're like, oh, you can't look at that.
So it's but yeah, I think like, have fun. But if you do the like homework, like even honestly, even 10 minutes a day, every day, even 5 minutes every day, gonna be way better than me when your guys are at high school. You know, it's the consistency. It's like Japanese, I was told. It's better to learn 10 minutes every day than one day for like 2 hours, I don't know, time, you know, and you could remember it way more than, you know, it's the consistency. And take breaks, have fun. If you can't draw today, doodle.
Yeah, you're not always going to be like, woo, I'm getting better all the time. Sometimes it's like,
yeah, that's even me this year. I was like, oh, I'm not improving. Time to go back to the foundations. Like, literally, like, all of this is just the boring stuff I did since yesterday, you know. And it's fun. I put on, if you're bored of it, put something on, put anime on or something while you're doing this. And it, you know, like, I could only watch anime if I do a square, you know.
You know,
Motivate
yourself to do the thing that you love. Get yourself better at it.
Yeah, so that is it's something I wish I was told younger, but even then this information wasn't accessible when I was younger. So
yeah, these guys are really lucky because they have access to the internet. They follow YouTube videos to get them learning how to draw, because they can see someone demoing it, and then they can do it on their own. They can do tutorials. It's awesome. I love finding different things for them to be able to use and explore with.
It's so much fun. Or even like Twitter, or like oh
Twitter's
my God, somebody like, today somebody had like a trick for color, and I'm like, what? So I like bookmarked it. I'm gonna look at it later. You know, or like grass, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's cool, like little things that you find, and you slowly add it up and you get better and better.
You kind of put it in what I call their artist's toolbox, and you don't know when you're going to need it, but when you do, you know exactly where to look to be like, oh, you know what, I know exactly where to look for that.
Exactly.
A little bit of that and sprinkle it in my project. So
it's fun. Like, I enjoy now it's internet's much better, like, and it's to a point, like, it's the education is better than art school sometimes, you know. It's neat, you know?
So some of these kids, and actually this was the question that I meant to ask you. It was one that was like submitted like right before I got on with you. But so I'm at a magnet arts school, and some of these kids will be able to apply and go to a special art school that we have in Washington County called Barbara Ingram, which is awesome. It's art school for high schoolers, which is fantastic.
That's awesome. There's something similar in Cleveland that I was offered, and I wish I took, but I went to another high school. So if they could do it, you know, it's cool, you know.
That's an awesome thing. Yeah, they didn't have that where I went to school growing up. but yeah. So you did not go to art school.
Correct.
Okay, so you just learned it by doing it all the time.
Yes, but it's one of those things where like, since a lot of people are like, never go to art school, and I'm like if I really, for example, another thing too, I was learning Japanese on my own. The moment I went to school, I learned it so much better because, structure, it's fun, especially if it's high school, it's like already in your like schedule and stuff. If it's something
Yeah.
similar, where like it's called Cleveland School of the Arts, when, and every day I was like, yeah, I really wish I went, because I would have got all the boring stuff out in high school and not do it now,
Mm.
So that's really cool that it's something similar that still is not just a Cleveland thing. That's really cool, actually,
Yeah, there's like a cool art museum down the road. There is an art school. There's an art middle school, which is where I teach.
Wow.
It's really cool.
Mm.
It's nice. If you ever come to Maryland, we'll have to show you the cool art museum.
No, yeah, definitely.
I mean, I know you're in Maryland for shows, but like for other things, we'll have to take you around. So
yeah, that sounds fun.
I think we've gone over all the questions that my students asked, unless they submitted some while we were talking, in which case you're too late, kids. But it has been so great being able to talk to you and see your artwork and have your words of wisdom from my students. I think they're really, really gonna like watching this and listening to this while they work. So I will, I guess, stop recording and then we can say proper goodbyes. So thank you again so much.
You're welcome.